Well, hello, and welcome to Tom Rhodes Radio Smart Camp. Wow, I guess I need to start this episode by apologizing, like I have so many times before, for having taken so long before I put out an episode. This year has been incredibly difficult for me, and I've been dealing with so much shit. I know in the last podcast I talked about just relationship issues, but there's just so much more than that. The just crushing loneliness I've experienced this year. I've spent so much time alone this year, and it's been difficult. I've been dealing with long periods of depression. The 1 year anniversary of the suicide that I witnessed last year just passed, and I drive by and I pass that spot or walk over the crosswalk where that happened. Every day I see the place. So, oh my God, I want to thank the people who have reached out to me. Brioni in England sent me a very nice message a few days ago. River in Canada just became a donator to the podcast. That always blows my mind when people donate to the podcast when I haven't put out an episode in a long time. It's almost like you're giving me a loving hug. Hey Tom, hope you're okay, and I still believe in what you do. Corey in Minneapolis, Carla in Rochester. The people who have reached out to me and wanted to know if I was doing okay, that really, really means the world to me. And here I am. I just wanted you to know that I'm okay. Thank God for comedy shows and hanging out with comedian friends, but that's not the same as hugging. I hug a few comedians, but just human touch and interaction. I didn't go home to Florida for Thanksgiving. I didn't want to travel during the holidays, and I'm not going to see my mom until early January. And let's start there. The country is heading in such a violent direction, it seems. The George Floyd protest riots happened all around my neighborhood, and my mother was visiting me. She was here with me when all that happened. But Kyle Rittenhouse got off self-defense, bringing a semi-automatic weapon to a protest and killing unarmed people. The guy got off with that. But then there was the Aubrey Emery. I don't know how to say the guy's name. The three men that killed him were convicted, but it seemed like that was going to go a different way, and those men were going to get off. Surprisingly, justice was done. But where I live, there's a park, and then there's a post office, and then there's a little patch of grass by the post office. I remember during the George Floyd protests that turned into the riots and clashes, they had dropped off a large pallet of water, and I remember seeing that when my mom and I were walking back from the protests, because even my mother was upset over what happened to George Floyd. Someone had dropped off a large pallet of like all these water bottles, where it's like the 24 pack, but it was a pallet of them. So maybe there was, I don't know, 100 of these 24 packs or something. So I thought, oh, that's nice, and the people can stay hydrated while they're protesting. And the people ended up throwing those at the cops, and then the police were shooting rubber bullets all day and clashing with the people on the street where I lived. I took tons of photos of that. So anyway, when those three men were convicted of murder for killing Aubrey, I'm sorry, I should have looked up the name. There were some youngish women in their 20s. They were out. They had a little banner, and they were handing out pamphlets, and it said, "It's time for a real revolution." So it's like, oh my God, it's like everybody wants to tear shit up and physically harm others, whatever your position is. But I'm this is where I wanted to start. I'm mad at Facebook because Facebook has brainwashed my mother. Anybody can buy an ad on Facebook. It could be about the stolen election or vaccines or anything you could think of. Hang Mike Pence, cancel culture is killing America. You can buy ads, and those end up in my mother's news feed, and she takes these to be a fact, or she believes it. My mother doesn't want to get vaccinated. I've talked about this on the podcast before. My mother thinks that the vaccine is a conspiracy to kill old people so that the government doesn't have to pay them their Social Security. So, and I've tried talking to my mother about this. It's like, if I could get my mother into QAnon, that would be a step closer to reality. And she told me that the left is going to brand conservative parents who speak out against what their children are taught in school. They're going to brand them as terrorists, which the right-wing media, how them like to not see Kyle Rittenhouse as a terrorist, but to see it's just so fucking confusing. And so my mother and I it's funny when we talk, we just completely avoid the topic. But I was in Austin, Texas in October, the end of October. I did this comedy festival for JT Haberstadt, the Altercation Comedy Festival. And there was a comedian on stage, and he was talking about his right-wing mother and how the problems he was having with her, communicating with her or getting her to see, any kind of reality that's not what right-wing media is completely blasting at people all the time. And there was another comedian there, and we had a really nice conversation. We were talking about our mothers, how our mothers are kind of just gone down the bunny hole of, not seeing a harmonious balance between all living human beings, and thinking that, the right is under attack, and that, any kind of reasoning for the better good of humanity, like wearing a fucking mask and getting a vaccination shot. 15, 20 years ago, I would drive into Austin, Texas, and there was this local guy on the local radio named Alex Jones, and he was always talking about conspiracy theories, and it was government black helicopters and crop circles and these kind of things. And I was always entertained when I would go to Austin to hear this crazy local guy on the local radio talking about these crazy theories that just all seemed like total horseshit. But I didn't want that to take over the country. I didn't want my country to become Alex Jones, and I didn't want my mother to become Alex Jones, which is what's happened to America. It's like, is anybody talking sense anymore? It's all pretty frightening. And my mother gets all these ideas. She doesn't even look at the news anymore. She gets her news, a lot of it, from Facebook. And I bought my mother years ago a MacBook computer so that we could Skype. My mom always, when I was traveling around the world as a comedian my whole life, my mother was always worried about the long distance charges. And I remember in the 80s and 90s, it did cost a lot of money to call from a hotel, to call your mommy. And then, here's this miracle. We can talk for free on our computers like astronauts. And then also I bought my mother an iPhone. She was the last of her friends to have an iPhone, and I wanted my mom to enjoy the modern comforts of modern technology, to be able to use the GPS, and it talk to you, at the red light, take a right, and things that would make my mother's life easier. I didn't want these things, these modern devices to, fill my mom with ideas that are difficult for her and I to speak about. One of the nice things about having an iPhone with my mother, like when she was here for the first 4 months of the pandemic, we would play Scrabble every day. And we had really lovely days passing the time. And I cooked all of our meals, and then we'd watch art documentaries at night. I did 3 or 4 episodes of the podcast with her at that time. So I mentioned back at that time that I realized, taking care of my mother during the pandemic, that I have many responsibilities to my mother as her son, but letting her win at Scrabble was not one of them. And I really enjoyed beating the shit out of her. So my mother and I have been playing Scrabble on the iPhones, and we play every day. And because of some of the political opinions she holds, I've really enjoyed beating the shit out of her. But that's totally changed. In the last couple weeks, I've won like 1 game, and my mother has crushed me 6 games. So there's no joy in my life. That one simple joy of crushing my mom at Scrabble is no longer something I can rely on. But I don't know. Maybe you're having troubles with your family too. It's just, what's happening to the world? I've been on a quest. I've been on a mission to cheer myself up, especially since the beginning of this year. That I had witnessed that suicide. Those first 3 months after that, the beginning of the year was really difficult. The scene kept playing over and over in my mind. I had a hard time sleeping, and I don't have those problems anymore. I mean, I like sometimes I'll walk by the spot where the woman landed on the pavement, and I won't even be thinking about it. And that'll be a nice feeling. There was a female comedian who I met because I did a show in the park across the street from me when things started opening up in April, and I talked about witnessing that suicide. And this young female comedian had also witnessed a suicide at the Americana in Glendale, which is owned by the same people that owned the shopping place where I live next to, that this woman jumped off their parking garage. Anyway, that young female comedian was in Austin, Texas, and I got to talk to her, and she's so traumatized by her event, and it was 3 years ago, that she doesn't even go to the Americana anymore. So I met her for coffee the other day, walked her by the spot, really nice person, and she's dealing with a lot of darkness from having witnessed that, and I tried to help her and talk to her, and told her my theory is the best thing you can do with bad memories is pave over them with good ones, but also and that's what I was starting to say, how this year I've been on a mission to cheer myself up, and one of the things I did to cheer myself up was I bought roller skates. And, and thank God, Ashna, she lives down by the beach, and I'll go meet her like once a month and go roller skating with her on the ocean. And I got her boyfriend's a good guy. Anyway, I also roller skate around my neighborhood. Just, I've eaten so much ice cream and chocolate this year. I mean, I'm trying to cheer myself up. and I've gotten a little porky as a result. So I want to also roller skate, not only because it brings me joy, but I could use the exercise. So there's this like 2-mile path around my neighborhood that I really enjoy skating. And like I love roller skating down Wilshire Boulevard. The sidewalks are very smooth there, and I skate by the museums. There's this iconic Los Angeles spot in front of the MoMA Museum. It's all these old Los Angeles street lamps, and they're all bunched up together, and it's an iconic shot of Los Angeles. So anyway, this happened to me last week. I was roller skating up Fairfax Avenue, and this happened to me once before earlier this year, also on Fairfax Avenue. As I'm roller skating up Fairfax Avenue, a young man in a passing car yelled, "Skating is for faggots." And, you know, I mean, first of all, you expect people in California to be more enlightened, but no, there's dimwits here also. And, you know, I thought that word had fallen out of fashion, but that's the second time roller skating up Fairfax Avenue this year that I've been called the F word. And it got me thinking. I think the automobile was the very first internet, because I think for the first time in human history, that allowed people the chance to yell nasty comments at people and face no consequences. They could yell, you know, whatever. I fucked your mom, I fucked your wife, whatever. Roller skating is for strong G and T sounds. You know, and that also got me thinking about the way women are catcalled. I think women should be allowed to carry paintball guns, and that they should be allowed to blast men who catcall them, and they could use different colors depending on the severity of the comment. You know, and everybody knows the like, you see some guy go, and then these men would have to answer to their mothers, their wives, their girlfriends, or their daughters when they got home. You know, they'd be like, "Yellow? What the hell did you say to deserve yellow?" It's I think these are joke ideas that are developing. Why don't I lay a couple more joke ideas on you? I've been reading a lot about the Stoics this year, and the Stoics believed that showing anger was a sign of weakness, and that we should always control our emotions. But you know, the Stoics never had to deal with Los Angeles traffic. I could see Seneca driving down the 405 the way I do. "Step on the gas, fucksticks." Hey, easy, Seneca. I thought you said that greatness of the soul will be lost unless we disdain as petty what the mob most desires. I mean, by that reasoning, we shouldn't even be traveling by car. Yeah, that one's probably not going to make it. Anyway, and nice, cute thing I like to do. My father, whenever he would find a penny on heads, he would always get excited. He'd be happy. My father genuinely felt like he had gained some good luck, some blessing from the universe whenever he found a coin on heads. And for that reason, whenever I see a penny on tails, I always like to bend over and flip it over on heads, because somebody like my dad is going to come strolling along and think they have good luck. So, I mean, it's pretty nice to give out good fortune and good karma like that. And it reminds me, God, years ago, I was walking with Ari Shafir in Chicago, beautiful summer day. And we're walking down Wells Street from Old Town to downtown. And there was a nickel, a shiny nickel on heads. And I looked down and I saw it, and I know he looked down and he saw it, and he wasn't going for it. So I bent down and I picked up the nickel. And Ari told me, he said, "I'm Jewish. We don't bend over for anything less than a dime." And I thought that was hilarious. And that's why I love taking walks with him, because I get all the nickels. Okay, these are jokes just for you and not for the stage, most certainly. I've been working on a history project. Hopefully, I'll start releasing in January. And right now, I'm reading a Charlie Chaplin biography called Tramp. And it's kind of cool. As I'm reading it, I'm watching all of his shorts, his silent shorts, on actually, I have a DVD set of everything Chaplin ever did, and I'm watching each film as I'm reading about it, and I just got up to The Kid, which still an all-time classic movie. It's only 31 minutes long. Haven't watched that one yet. That's just where I got in the book, but it reminds me. A few years ago, I read this Jack Dempsey, the boxing champion, biography called A Flame of Pure Fire. It's Jack Dempsey in the Roaring '20s. And that was cool that I could read that book, and as it got to each fight, I could watch. All these fights are on YouTube, and I could watch each fight as I got to it. So anyway, there's a little tip for you. I'm going to pause this. Okay, wow, and we are back. Hey, that was a really good break for me. I just got back from a hot yoga class. Like I was saying earlier, I'm a little porkier than, actually, I'm heavier than I've ever been. And I've never been like 200 was always as porky as I've ever gotten. And I've been over 200, everybody. And, I've been exercising by roller skating. And then, as I mentioned before, roller skating down Wilshire Boulevard. There's a place on Wilshire Boulevard called Hot 8 Yoga. And 15, 16, 17 years ago, whenever it was, when I lived in Los Angeles years ago, I used to do hot yoga, the Bikram yoga. And I was drinking heavily back then, but some other comedian friends of mine were into it, and I really loved it. And I remember the way when I would tell other people about it that, it's good to do yoga because just for the spine bending alone, because as people get older, they have back problems and spine problems, and everything's got a purpose. When you twist, or like things when you're tucking your chin in, you're massaging your lymph nodes on your neck. When you're twisting your side, you're like, massaging your butthole tube or your small intestines and things like that. Like, these ancient postures all have great benefits. So earlier this week, I went in there, and they have an $8 introductory week cost, whatever it's called, and I just got back. So I've done 4 hot yoga classes this week, and I absolutely suck at it. And I sucked when I did it 15, 16 years ago. But it's, you're in a room that's 100 degrees, you're sweating profusely, your pores open up, it's good for your skin, that kind of stuff. Hanging upside down, there's blood rushing to your head. I was just in such a low spot, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, personally. I really feel better this week that I've gotten in there and gotten to stretch it out in the heat. So yeah, I'm doing it whatever I can. Like I said, I'm on a mission to cheer myself up, and and this year I've let the 12-year-old boy in me take over. Like, I really got into baseball season. It's a pity that the season's over, and now the winter thug sports are here. But I went to my first playoff game ever. I saw the Dodgers beat the living shit out of the San Francisco Giants 7-2, and The Giants are my favorite team, but I enjoy and love going to the Dodgers games. And I've never seen so many happy people. And they were into every pitch because it was a playoff game. And then afterwards, they built this new pavilion behind Dodger Stadium, behind the outfield. And I was exiting that way with my friend, and there was a DJ playing music after the game. And there was hundreds of people dancing. And it was just like, I've never seen so much joy in a baseball stadium. And Dodgers ended up losing in the next round of the series, and they were knocked out of it. But that was a really happy moment. I've been going to the flea markets. There's this flea market not far from where I live at Fairfax High School, and I go there every Sunday. And it reminds me, like when I lived in Amsterdam, the story of, Rembrandt was bad with his money because he kept going to the docks and buying all these things like helmets or tortoise shells so he could paint them authentically. I'm not buying anything goofy like that, but it's funny. I'm on the hunt for baseball cards or old vinyl records or books. Nothing too exorbitant, but I like coming back with used items that only I would care about. So I also went to 3 Rolling Stones concerts to cheer myself up. I had bought tickets for the Sunday show in Los Angeles with this comedian friend of mine, Mark Ellis, and he works for a radio station, and he got us free tickets for the Thursday night show. And it was at SoFi Stadium, this just what a monolith, what a magnificent structure. Seats like 90,000. The Coliseum downtown in Los Angeles, that's over 100 years old. That seats like 100,000, but this one seats 90,000. And I think there was, 70,000 at the Stones. I'm not sure. But our seats were so high up with the free radio station tickets, you could touch the roof. And the Rolling Stones looked like little ants. And, there were mountain goats up there. There was a guy with a long horn yelling Rick Cola. That's how high up these seats were. And then a couple weeks later, I went to see the Rolling Stones in Las Vegas. I had that week off, and I was thinking this is probably the end of the Rolling Stones, the last time they're ever going to play in the United States. The Rolling Stones became a band in 1962, so next year will be their 60th anniversary. And I foresee them doing a handful of European dates, and they'll probably end it in England. Of course, they'll end it in London where they started, and then there'll be no more. So kind of interesting that the end of the Rolling Stones, which I think this is the end of stadium rock. What band could ever fill a stadium again? So, and it's interesting that it kind of coincides with what is probably the end of democracy and the rise of fascism, and which will result in limited free speech and all kinds of joy disappearing. There's a lot to be nervous about. And anywho, I got the craziest story that I want to tell you, and it involves Las Vegas also. I don't want to go back to the road and being on the road constantly. I just want to go to places I want to go to. Like hopefully next year I'll return to Europe. But just that flying somewhere every week, every other week, sitting in towns for like 5 days. I just want to play right now in where I can drive to in Vegas, San Francisco, San Diego, Los Angeles. The way sports teams say they're in a rebuilding year. That's how I'm just I'm getting back into the form of writing jokes. I love performing at the Comedy Store and the Improv in Los Angeles, a few other places. West Side Comedy Club, Jam in the Van is cool. So I'm kind of slowly rehabilitating myself. And I'm not going to tell this. There's a story that involves a famous comedian friend of mine. The guy's very famous, and he has a lot of money in the bank, in probably many banks. But I was in Las Vegas last month, And the sentence that the Rolling Stones are probably the end of Stadium Rock is what made me think of this story. So my friend texted me and asked me if I was in Las Vegas. I said yes. He said he's going to this EDC festival, which I never heard of. It stands for the Electric Daisy Carnival. And, it's a big drug ecstasy party with lots of DJs. And it was being held for 3 nights at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. So my friend said, I'm bringing a group of people, and, you can come as many nights as you want, join my group, and, we're going by helicopter. And, that's what got my attention. And I texted him, I said, I have 2 shows a night at the Laugh Factory. I finish at midnight. He said, don't worry, the festival goes till 5:30 in the morning every night. So he said, my assistant, Jennifer, will get a hold of you. So Jennifer texts me and says, and she also sent me an itinerary. She said, I need to be at Maverick Helicopters, which is 5 minutes from the Tropicana, where the Laugh Factory is. I need to be there at 12:30 a.m. for the 1 a.m. flight. And when I land at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, someone will be there to meet me at the helicopter and take me straight to famous person, friend, who's in the VIP area. So, easy peasy lemon squeezy. I get the other comedian friend that I did the show with to drive me there. He drops me off. I get there, 12:15, plenty of time. And the young Asian woman that worked at the desk was the opposite of helpful. I said, my name is Tom Rhodes, and she said, sorry, I do not have your name here. Do you have a reservation number? And I said, I'm a stand-up comedian. I had 2 shows tonight. I'm friends with famous person, and I'm in famous person's group. And I was told I'm on the 1 a.m. flight. And here's Jennifer's texts. And she goes, oh, she looks again. Sorry, don't have your name here. Do you have a reservation number? I'm like, okay. So I step aside. It's a small little helicopter place. And these people are dressed up in costumes. There's like a dozen people there waiting for their helicopter flight. And like Japanese anime character costumes. And they had colored wigs. And people appeared to be on drugs. So I could, understand if the check-in woman was a little irritated. And, I'm wearing a white button-up shirt and a black cardigan. And I'm, older dude. So I'm texting Jennifer. She's not getting back to me. And I wait like 15, 20 minutes. And then finally I went back up to the woman and I said, could you please check one more time and make sure there's not a special note under famous person's reservation that one person in his group is not on the 1 a.m. flight? So she spends 5 minutes looking at the computer screen, and she goes, oh, okay. It says there is one person in their group on the 1 a.m. flight, but there's no name. I'll assume that's you. Okay, thanks. So I get on the helicopter, and, my father flew helicopters in Vietnam. I've been obsessed with helicopters my whole life. But I've only been on 2 helicopters in my life, and it is terrifying. They're flimsy little vehicles, and they're easily thrown around by the wind, and then you hit these air pockets. But I was excited about doing a helicopter ride again, and I was facing my fear, and I think the helicopter ride was what I was the most excited about. And it was really nice. We didn't fly directly over the Las Vegas Strip, but we flew above it to the right, looking down on it. And it was magnificent. And the lights, and it was beautiful. And, the helicopters being blown around and dropping. I guess that's what helicopters do. And, your gut's twisting. My gut's twisting. But that was worth it. Just that view. And I'll never forget it. And we get past the Las Vegas Strip, and I can see the Las Vegas Motor Speedway is 10 miles out of the city. And I can see it way in the distance, and there's big lights shooting up. A motor speedway is, 3-4 lengths of regular football fields? It's a long, wide, stadium structure. So the helicopter lands. No one is there to greet me. And no one who's on the ground there has my name. No one knows anything. No one knows where I should go. Woman with a computer, I asked her. She looked. My name's not there. She said, let me go ask my boss. She comes back 10 minutes later. And, I've been reading a lot of about Stoicism and the Stoics, and that, they felt that, anger was a sign of weakness and you got to control your emotions and, just play it cool. So I'm not getting upset by all these setbacks, but nothing is as it said it was going to be. And the woman comes back, says, my boss said you should walk down here and go to the Sky Deck VIP check-in. Oh, thank you so much for your help. I really appreciate it. So I go off walking in that direction that she pointed me to. And a man pulled up in a golf cart. And he goes, where are you going? I said, to the Sky Deck VIP check-in. He goes, get on. I'll give you a ride. This guy was an absolute godsend. Or whatever you believe in. A universe good karma moment send. And it's past 1 a.m. And he goes, wow, you're getting here pretty late. And I said, yeah, I'm a stand-up comedian. I had 2 shows tonight, and I'm supposed to be supposed to meet my famous friend, and I have no idea where I'm supposed to go. And the guy said, you're in luck. I am the head of security for the VIP section. I know exactly where your famous friend is, and I can take you right there. Oh my God, this place was massive. So he pulls up to the VIP check-in. He goes, you wait here. He gets the coveted gold wristband. I didn't even have to get off the golf cart. And then he drove me way around the speedway and inside. And I never would have found famous friend. And we go in. He takes me, past the security check-in. And the VIP area was basically an elevated section with couches above everybody else, looking down on the peasants, if you will. And everybody appears to be on drugs and dancing, or I don't know if you'd call it dancing. We'll come back to that in a minute. But when I got there, so I walk in, this man who got me there, he takes me to the section where my famous friend is and says, hey, man, nice to meet you, and, have a good time. And at that moment, this massive owl appeared in the sky, and it was synchronized drones in the shape of a massive owl. I took a video of it, and I put it on my Instagram, and it did a light little, its wings bent, and then I looked, and then there was this billboard, and it said, you are love. And then the greatest fireworks display I've ever seen in my life went off for 10 minutes. And I'm thinking, wow, okay, let me soak this in. You are love. Okay, wow, maybe this is what the young people are doing now. This is the new summer of love. Maybe the rejection of all the hatred, violence, and brewing fascism, that there's this love movement happening. So a comedian friend of mine, a guy that I've known forever, he was with famous comedian friend. And he said, have you seen everything? I said, no. He goes, let's take a lap. So we walked through, there's 6 stages, DJs, it's electronic music, and fireballs and lasers shooting off all the stages. There were carnival rides, and everybody's dressed. There was lots of people in costume, these anime costumes, and the women wore these skimpy outfits, and there was nothing sexual about it. And I think that's the point, that they're just cartoon characters, even though their asses are hanging out. And then I wouldn't even call what these people were doing was dancing. It's what we used to call in the 80s the pogo, where you're just jumping up and down in one place. And it was so loud. You had to scream to talk to someone even really close to them. And I wish I had brought earplugs like the old dude that I am. And my ear bothered me for like a week after this thing. So we go back to the VIP section, and me and my buddy are standing by the railing, and this woman, I'd say she was about 25, shorter than me. She had fur on her shoulders, and she had a little like kind of bikini outfit on. And I mean, I told you it was more cartoonish than it was anything attractive about it. And you know, I'm drinking water, and I'm the oldest guy there. You know, I'm wearing a fucking cardigan and a white shirt, and this woman comes up. She puts this bottle of water in my hand, and at first I won't take it. My hand just went limp, because you know when someone's trying to hand you something against your will, and she's just like, she was just steadfast in pushing it into my hand. So I took it, and so now I'm holding 2 bottles of water, and the bottle of water she handed me had no cap on it, and she makes the motion for me to drink. And I said, no, thank you. I have my own water, yelling it. And she does that motion again for me to drink. And I go, no, thank you. I have my own water. Thank you. And she does it one more time. And I said, no. And obviously, she's trying to give drugs to the old dude against his will. But I got news for you, young lady. I was doing drugs before you were born. I was doing ecstasy in dance clubs in London and Manchester and Amsterdam and Ireland. You know, I probably danced with your mother. You think I'm a moron? So anyway, she's making this drink motion for me to drink the water, and I'm no. And there was a little coffee table, and I went to put the water she gave me down on the thing, and she grabbed my chest like a man, a fistful of my chest hair in my shirt. And I looked down because she was really short. I looked down, and in her little drugged out eyes, I could see anger and aggression and fuck love. This ain't nothing love about this thing, this party at all. You know, like there's no sentimentality to the music. It's not played by humans. It's computer generated music. There's no lyrics. There was no intimacy to anything. It was too loud to communicate with others. There was no intimacy. That's the thing. Like, maybe the Rolling Stones are the end of stadium rock, and maybe this soulless drug DJ dance festival is what will be the future. And all these people had flags. It looked like some, I don't know, Plantagenet jousting competition in the north of England or something in the 1500s. But so this woman grabs my chest, and I look down at the little anger and aggression in her little drugged out eyes. And I smacked her hand off her fist off of my chest. And my buddy read the situation perfectly. Well, I lean over to say something to him, and she darted up on her tippy toes to put her face between ours so she could hear what I was saying to him. But he read the situation perfectly. He takes me 2 couches over to our famous comedian friend who's on drugs, and we sit next to him on the couch. And this is 4 a.m. So, and then my buddy got up and left, and then a young woman that's with famous comedian friend was on the couch. So it's the 3 of us sitting there. And then at 5 a.m, my famous comedian friend turns to me and he says, "We're leaving." I said, "Can I go with you?" He said, "No, you have to take a Lyft or an Uber." I said, "I thought I was going with you." He goes, "I can't pay for you to take a helicopter." And in a slight panic, I go, "Jennifer told me I was leaving with you and your group on a helicopter." And then I can see his drugged out face accept this knowledge and compute it through his drugged out brain. And he goes, "Oh, okay." And then I left with him. But it was that easy. I was almost stranded at the check-in. I was almost stranded when the helicopter landed. And then I'm almost stranded. I only wanted to go because my famous comedian friend invited me. didn't give a fuck about this music, and I definitely don't give a fuck about these angry little drugged out Japanese characters, whatever their lonely lives are about. I thought it was cool to check it out, but you know, like I said, man, I lived in Amsterdam when shit was really fun, and DJs were great, and the music was good. I didn't like the music at this place, so me and famous comedian friend and his girlfriend and my old buddy comedian friend and his girlfriend are in the helicopter. We leave at like 5:15 a.m. The the helicopter's lifting up, and it's flying away from the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, going back to Maverick helicopters, and I can see that the traffic is bumper to bumper for 5 miles, leaving that Las Vegas Motor Speedway to go back to, the fun part of Las Vegas City. And, oh my God, who knows how much money it would have cost me to get an Uber or a Lyft from there. It's 10 miles out of the town. Or I probably would have had to walk a few miles. I mean, to even get a Lyft in the first place. But, oh my God, I just, who knows what time I would have even gotten back to my hotel. And how much money it would have cost me. And, I wasn't pissed, but I'd never want to put myself in that position ever again, to be at anyone's mercy of where I go and how I'm getting back from somewhere. You think, oh my God, hey, my famous comedian friend. Oh, helicopters. Wow, this will be an experience. But, no, I mean, it was, it seemed like there was something very kind of pagan about it, with the owl, and then there was a big owl on the main stage. I didn't get the whole owl thing. If he was sucking on a Tootsie Pop, trying to figure out how many licks it takes to get to the center, maybe there would have been some meaning behind it. But it was nuts, man. And give me music played by humans with lyrics that have meaning and sentimentality and heartfelt ideas. Anywho, so yeah, wow. That was my big crazy story, and fortunately, I got back to my hotel at 6 a.m. Slept all day, but had shows that night. It's funny, like my dad always wanted me to play Vegas, and I never wanted anything to do with it. But there's a couple Vegas gigs that I really love there. I love the Laugh Factory at the Tropicana, and then next week, December 6th through the 12th, I'm at Brad Garrett's at the MGM, which, as you know, the last time I was there, I had gotten COVID right before I went, and Brad Garrett is such a good human being. He let me quarantine at the MGM. He paid me in full, and one of the most beautiful human beings in comedy. And I'm excited to go back next week. And they moved from the basement to the ground level where all the fun is. So it's going to be an exciting new thing. Speaking of, I think two of the best people. Like Dave Chappelle is a wonderful, wonderful guy, and especially to other comedians. Brad Garrett loves comedians, treats them so well. And my friend Bill Burr treats comedians so well. Last night, I got together with Bill Burr, and I smoked cigars with him. And, him and Mark Maron are the ones that got me into cigars a couple years ago. But I really enjoy puffing a cigar with Bill Burr and just shooting the shit. And he made me laugh a few times really hard, and I made him laugh hard a few times. I remember I was telling him about how the University of Alabama has there's this little shop in the Muslim quarter of Jerusalem in Israel. And I was telling him the story, and he's like, he couldn't believe it. And I'm like, yeah, and they sell Alabama Roll Tide yarmulkes and golf things and anything you can think of is they got Alabama Roll Tide, but it's in the Muslim section. So if you're Christian, you should be rooting for Auburn. And if you're in, not many people would get that, but Bill Burr thought it was hilarious because Auburn is the big rival of Alabama University, and only people in Alabama know that. But anyway, Bill Burr is a big helicopter enthusiast, and I told him the story I just told you, and he said he said I forgot you had this connection with helicopters because your dad, and he invited me. He said he goes up like twice a week, so maybe I'll go fly around Los Angeles. That could be dangerous. I know instantly you're thinking about Kobe Bryant, but I trust Bill more, and he's a smart man. He wouldn't take off in thick fog like the other dude. Anywho, I got a set at the Comedy Store tonight. I'm talking to you now. What is this? Friday. Ba-ba-ba-do-beep-bop. That's me scatting. Right now it's December 3rd. I'm in the original room at the Comedy Store. Tomorrow night I'm in the main room at the Improv. And I'm so deeply in love with Los Angeles and performing at these comedy clubs. And I've been meaning to do a recording for a while. So I've even had my recorder on the table. And I'm glad I finally sat down and just let you guys know that I'm alive. But I've been struggling mentally, been struggling emotionally. And I needed a little time to myself. But I really appreciate everybody reaching out. And next to having the microphone on my table here, I also have photos of Gurka Nauta. Gurka Nauta was the director of my late night talk show in Amsterdam. And that's another thing I've been meaning to do for a while is sit down and write a letter to his wife and his two daughters and just tell them my memory of him and what a beautiful man he was. And how Gurka Nauta and Jason Tegelar, those were the two men that discovered me, chose me off of the audition for that late night talk show and gave me the job and basically changed my life. I had this amazing life in Amsterdam. So hopefully I'll do that in the next couple days before Christmas. The first holidays after you lose somebody is really painful, but it's painful for those people. He had a heart attack or a brain aneurysm, something like that. It was nasty. And they sent me the funeral notice, and I have it on my front door when I leave my apartment. And it says Gurka. And I think I mentioned this before when I talked about him. He would always tell me, because I was going through a breakup with the Dutch actress that I moved to Amsterdam for when I started doing that late night talk show. So he was always trying to lift my spirits. So right before I would walk out behind the curtains to do the monologue and start the taping of the Kevin Masters late night show that I had, he would always say to me, because he was the director and he would be with me, standing right by my side before I went out, he goes, "Remember, Tommy, you're a star." And I always thought that was so beautiful. So that's my advice to you guys. What I want to say to you, wherever you are in the world, remember, you're a star. You're the star of the movie of your life. Just be a star. Keep your chin up. Try not to get beaten down. I mean, it's happened bad to me this week. Oh, let me say this. Kristen, who used to be a golden Buddha, and I know she'll probably hear this episode, she came to see me in Austin. And she told me, whenever I've seen photos of you've posted, it always looks like you were taking a bite out of life. But after you witnessed that suicide and you posted a video, it looked like life had taken a bite out of you. And I thought, holy fuck. And I know she loves me. She's a fan. I mean, she's a friend now, like so many of you who are listening. People who were fans who became friends because you support me, and I've met so many of you. I think what she said was right. And that's also like why I'm trying to cheer myself up. I used to say I never wanted to live in Los Angeles because friends who lived here after so many years, they lost the sparkle in their eye. I never want to lose that sparkle in my eye. And that's why I'm roller skating. That's why I'm doing yoga. And I want to look like I'm taking a bite out of life. And I want everyone who's listening to this to always look like they're taking a bite out of life. And, it's hard out there. And it seems like shit is going to get even weirder. But anywho, that's it for now. And we're moving into the Christmas season. I will try not to wait so long until I put out another episode. I'm going to jump in the shower now and get all dressed up, City Slicker style, and go rock the balls off of the Original Room at the Comedy Store. And that's the same place when I was 19. That's the same room when I won the Funniest Person in Central Florida contest. The prize was I got to fly to Los Angeles and do a set in the Original Room. And sometimes I think of that. And I was so nervous as a 19-year-old who had never been to LA before. And then also in that same room, the Original Room, years later, my dad loved Richard Pryor. And Richard Pryor, it was after he was in a wheelchair, but it was his birthday and he was going to perform in the Original Room. This was when I lived here like 16 years ago. And I bought tickets. And I didn't play at the Comedy Store back then. I did the Laugh Factory and the Improv mainly. But I bought tickets for me and my dad. And then these two men lifted up Richard Pryor in the wheelchair onto the stage. And then afterwards, when he came down, they brought him in the back. And they put Richard Pryor, it was just where my dad and I were sitting. They sat him right in front of us. And Richard Pryor could barely lift his head up. And my dad and I both got to lean in and shake Richard Pryor's hand. And one of the greatest thrills of our life. And I remember being a kid driving around listening to Richard Pryor with my dad. So to have that moment. So sometimes right before I'm about to go on stage in the Original Room at the Comedy Store, I'll get flashes of those moments. 19-year-old Tom Rhodes, or, Tom Rhodes, 40, 35, however old I was, I was with my dad, and we met Richard Pryor and shook his hand. Anyway, I think Faye Woodruff said it best. Life at its worst still ain't all bad. There's so many good things to be happy about, and I just want to blow sunshine into all of your lives. And thank you so much for supporting me, listening to the podcast, and I'm hugging you with my words, and I hope you feel it. Long may you run. Shalom, amigos y amigas. Yeah. All right. Hot sweet ass. Thank you. Merry Christmas.
Tom Rhodes, you're a funny man. Tom Rhodes, you're an international comedian. Tom Rhodes, Karate Kick, baby, oh yeah. Tom Rhodes, you're a groovy dude. You go all around the world, telling jokes to all of the people. You are an international comedian. You're funny to everybody in every single country in the world. Tom Rhodes, I like you very much. I think you're talented and very wonderful. Tom Rhodes, you're the best guy in the world. I wanna be your friend. You should call me sometime. Here is my phone number, 603-644-0048. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Tom Rhodes, you're an international comedic sensation. Tom Rhodes, I like to listen to your podcast. Tom Rhodes, you're the best man to ever walk on the earth.